A lone elf blacksmith, driven by dedication, hammered away into the night, her silhouette illuminated by the forge's glow as she painstakingly crafted a new blade. After tireless work, she finally completed her creation, a magnificent sword that brought her immense satisfaction and a sense of accomplishment. With pride, the elf, Carrie, presented her finished work, envisioning it as a heroic weapon, despite others seeing her efforts as a waste of time. The moment of triumph was abruptly shattered by a sharp crack and a falling tear, signaling an unforeseen disaster. A critical old appraiser brutally broke the sword, dismissing it as worthless, crushing the young blacksmith's spirit. The stern appraiser is revealed to be her own father, Bamboo, who scolds her again. "How many times do I need to warn you, Carrie?" he says with a heavy sigh, insisting that the world no longer has a need for weapons. He explains that the modern era craves the power of magic, not tools designed for killing. While he lectures, Carrie tries to protest, but her words fall on deaf ears as he turns his back on her plea. As proof, her father shows her a small, magically infused object, but Carrie recoils from it with a look of pure horror and disgust, completely repulsed by the item in his hand. Her shock quickly turns into a defiant rage. Screaming hate magic, she smashes her hammer down onto a glowing magical rune, shattering the sigil and her father's argument with it. The source of their disagreement is shown clearly: a sword, instantly created by magic. For her father, it represents efficiency, making the long hours of his daughter's traditional craft seem completely pointless. Standing over the instantly made, magical sword, the difference between them was clear. For her father, it was a marvel of new technology, but for Carrie, it was an insult that devalued the very soul of her craft. Carrie later tries to explain that this magic is a cheat, leaving its user completely drained after one use. Her father, however, refuses to listen, yelling at her to stop making weapons altogether. The argument reaches its breaking point. As Carrie prepares a large cart to leave, her enraged father threatens to destroy it, but she firmly shuts the door on him, ready to depart. With a look of sheer determination, Carrie declares she's leaving on a quest to become the greatest blacksmith in the world, telling her stunned father to stay behind and watch her prove him wrong. Putting words into action, she pulls her entire workshop on wheels away from her home. Her father yells for her to come back, but his pleas are ignored as she marches toward her new future. Carrie arrives with her cart at a grand castle town during a massive festival. Seeing the celebration for the 1000th anniversary of the hero's victory, she is filled with optimism, certain that everyone will be eager to buy her weapons. In a town square, a large crowd gathers around a statue of the legendary hero. Carrie watches from the edge of the festival as a man holds up a sword, observing the commemorative ceremony with great interest. The people are celebrating Harold, the hero of the end, famed for defeating the Demon King. However, history remembers a peculiar detail. His legendary weapons were so powerful they would always shatter after a single use. A young man who looks just like the hero is handed a large sword as part of a reenactment. Carrie watches intently, whispering a question to herself. Could he possibly break a blade like that? With a sharp crack, the young man strikes the sword and shatters it instantly. The crowd roars as he successfully replicates the hero's legendary and destructive feat, breaking the weapon to prove his power. The town festival was a massive spectacle, completely dominated by magical performances that captivated the enormous crowds. Inside her cart, Carrie confidently presented her impressive collection of hand-forged weapons, believing they would sell quickly. Despite her calls, the crowds walked right past her shop, their eyes drawn to the flashier magical entertainment all around them. After a long day with no customers, a child finally approached her cart, but only to curiously ask if she was an elf. The boy then asked to see a magic trick, forcing Carrie to awkwardly pitch her weapons to a customer who wanted a magical show. The child continued his innocent questioning, asking what her swords were for and if they were truly more useful than magic. Before she could answer, the boy delivered a final, crushing blow by asking, Who would even be happy to get one of those? His friends then flew by on a magic staff, telling him to leave the antique store behind, and he quickly ran off to join them. Carrie was forced to reflect on history. After the hero brought peace 1,000 years ago, the need for weapons simply vanished. Watching the children leave, she finally admitted to herself that even though she kept smithing, the world now preferred magic. Staring out at the uncaring crowd, Carrie sighed in defeat. Realizing if this was how the world was, she needed a new plan. A dark and desperate thought then crossed her mind. If peace made her weapons useless, maybe she should just bring back the Demon King. As if summoned by her wish, a mysterious hooded man appeared, saying he strongly agreed and had a mission for her. Suddenly, the stranger unleashed a powerful spell, and a massive magic circle erupted from the ground around her cart. Carrie yelled out in shock and confusion as the powerful magic swirled around the mysterious man who now stood before her. The powerful magic shattered the street beneath her, sending Carrie and her entire workshop plummeting into a dark abyss. As she fell, the mysterious hooded figure peered down into the chasm he created and offered her a cryptic best of luck. The hole in the ground then magically sealed itself shut, leaving no trace on the surface and trapping her deep below. Carrie eventually awoke, dazed and confused amidst the complete wreckage of her cart and all her worldly possessions. Looking around, she found herself in a strange, cavernous underworld, wondering where the hole in the city had taken her. Looking up at the sky from the bottom of the crater, Carrie was deeply confused about where she had been transported to. Her heart sank when she turned to see her cart completely destroyed and her finest sword shattered by the impact of the fall. She wept over her ruined work, mourning the years she spent preparing weapons for a festival that now felt a world away. Her grief was cut short when she spotted a massive, glittering deposit of cerussite, a legendary or that drains the life of any who touch it. She knew touching the rare, cursed, or would cost her years of her life, but a desperate thought began to form in her mind. Deciding the risk was worth it, Carrie endured the pain and pulled at the cursed ore, convinced her long elven lifespan was a small price to pay for an incredible weapon. With a final tug, she broke off a large piece, nervously laughing that it was a good thing she was an elf who could spare some years of her life. Her celebration was cut short as a pack of monstrous death hounds, long thought to be extinct, emerged from the shadows and surrounded her. The terrifying beasts lunged at her in a coordinated attack, and Carrie could only watch in horror as they closed in for the kill. But the hounds stopped short, their glowing eyes fixed not on her, but on the life-draining piece of cerussite where she was clutching. Using the cursed ore as a brilliant lure, Carrie leaped into a desperate sprint, leading the entire pack of monsters on a chase. As the drooling hounds snapped at her heels, she frantically wondered what kind of terrifying, forgotten world she had fallen into. She screamed internally as she ran, realizing this lost land was home to extinct beasts and minerals that shouldn't exist. Her desperate escape led her directly to a cliff's edge, and the ground crumbled beneath her, sending her into yet another fall. Landing hard at the bottom, she winced in pain, only to realize that she was now being watched by strange new creatures from the shadows. Clutching the cursed ore, Carrie noticed she wasn't alone in the abyss and cautiously moved to investigate another strange light. A wide view of the crater revealed 2 points of light, Carrie on one side, and on the other, a mysterious, illuminated figure. As she got closer, she found a man bound in chains, and she cautiously wondered if the human figure was even still alive. She saw that his ornate shackles were attached to long chains that were held by giant, monstrous stone hands embedded in the walls. The full, shocking sight was then revealed. A man crucified by demonic stone hands in the middle of a glowing field of flowers. The prisoner finally spoke, his piercing eyes locking on Carrie as he rasped a single, urgent command to her. "Give me." Confused by his demand, Carrie hesitated for a moment, and the death hounds took the opportunity to advance on her again. With their fear of the Yor now gone, the entire pack of monstrous hounds lunged forward to attack her. Reacting in an instant, Carrie desperately threw the life-draining Cirrus Knight or straight to the mysterious Chain Man. The man absorbed the Yor's power, shattered a shackle, and snatched Carrie away an instant before the hound's jaws snapped shut. As the hounds snapped wildly, Carrie was gripped by terror, thinking she couldn't let her story end in such a desolate place. She glanced at the discarded oar and remembered her father's words, despairing that her weapons had never truly been needed. But her despair turned to defiance. None of her weapons had been needed yet, she thought with sudden, burning resolve. The man, now overflowing with power, turned to her with his face masked in shadow and issued a new command. "Give me a weapon." Ignoring who he was, Carrie accepted, brandishing her hammer and declaring he would wield her very first true masterpiece. With a determined shout, Carrie lifted her hammer high, using the cursed Cirrus Knight or itself as her new anvil. She brought her hammer down with incredible force, and a magic circle appeared as she began to shape the volatile energy. As she rained down powerful blows, an ornate and powerful weapon was quickly forged from the heart of the cursed stone. When her work was done, a massive, crystalline mace stood before them, radiating an aura of immense, unstable power. Grasping the weapon, the man erupted into flames, shattered his final chain, and declared that he could now kill them all. With his new power, the man easily shattered the final chains that held the demonic stone hands, freeing himself completely. He then turned his weapon on the giant stone hands themselves, smashing the very source of his long imprisonment into rubble. Now fully unbound, he turned to face a new challenger, a colossal, shadowy beast that rose from the earth before him. The monster let out a deafening roar that shook the cavern, but the man stood his ground, ready for the impossible fight. He then shocked Carrie by speaking to the beast like an old friend, revealing it was his warden and, after ages together, like a brother. Ignoring the smaller hounds, the man walked with fiery purpose towards his colossal warden, ready for their final battle. The giant beast charged a massive ball of destructive energy in its mouth, preparing to obliterate its former prisoner. With a deafening roar, the warden fired its energy beam, causing a cataclysmic explosion that shook the foundations of the world. But as the dust settled, the colossal beast itself recoiled in pain, shocked and wounded by the outcome of its attack. The man stood unharmed on a ledge high above, casually taunting his old jailer for its terrible aim and asking if it was still half asleep. The man spoke to his warden, admitting with respect that if he were unarmed, he could never hope to win against it. But as he clutched the weapon Carrie made, he grinned and declared that as long as he was armed, he was truly invincible. His piece said, he launched himself forward with blinding speed, closing the distance to deliver the final, decisive blow. With the battle finished in an instant, the man calmly walked away from his defeated foe, bidding his brother a simple goodbye. The final, swift strike was delivered, and the man finally defeated his ancient warden, ending their centuries-long imprisonment together. After defeating his warden, the man turned his new weapon on the remaining pack of monstrous death hounds. He unleashed the full power of the caller of the dead man, swinging the mace in a devastating arc that struck every beast at once. The moment the cursed weapon hit them, the ancient monsters began to violently disintegrate into dust and smoke. The sheer power of the final blow caused the entire cavern to tremble, and Carrie could only watch in stunned silence. When the battle was over, the man stood victorious upon a throne of bones as the souls of the dead swirled around him. Carrie was still in awe that he had felled the giant monster in a single blow, but then she saw a crack form on her weapon. The masterpiece shattered into pieces, and Carrie suddenly remembered the legend of the hero, whose weapons always broke after one use. The man was unsurprised by the weapon's destruction, and in that moment, Carrie realized she had armed Harold, the hero of the end. The legendary hero then turned to the young blacksmith, placing a hand on her head to acknowledge her incredible, innate skill. Kneeling down amidst the rubble, Harold gave the exhausted but proud blacksmith a gentle and appreciative pat on the head. With a warm smile, the legendary hero looked at the young blacksmith and gave her the one praise she always dreamed of. "You make amazing weapons." Hearing those words, Carrie's eyes filled with tears as she was suddenly struck by a powerful memory from her childhood. She remembered her father holding her, telling her she was amazing, and realized those were the words she most wanted to hear again. The hero's praise was just like her father's, the very words that made her want to be a blacksmith, and she wept with happiness. But the tender moment was cut short when the hero's face hardened, and he looked to the sky, angrily muttering about vultures. With the giant beast gone, the remaining horde of monsters turned their attention to Harold and Carrie, swarming them from all sides. Carrie asked him to fight them off, but he simply stated his weapon was broken and demanded she make him another one. As the beasts closed in, the hero calmly told the horrified blacksmith that to him, weapons are merely disposable items. The hero and the blacksmith stood, surrounded on all sides, a seemingly endless horde of monsters closing in on them. Harold impatiently demanded a new weapon, but Carrie desperately tried to explain that she couldn't create one without materials. As the beast charged, the hero brushed his hair back, clearly annoyed by both the monsters and the blacksmith's excuses. With a sudden shove, he pushed Carrie to the ground, coldly turning his back on her as the beasts closed in. His final, cruel thought on the matter was clear. In this desperate situation, the young blacksmith was utterly useless. All the voices of doubt from her life echoed in her head, telling her that her passion for weapons was worthless. The hero's final words, calling her work disposable items, struck her the hardest, leaving her shattered on the floor. As she lay in despair, she was startled by a new presence and looked up to see a tall skeleton with a flower for an eye. Terrified by the undead creature, Carrie screamed and desperately scrambled away from the silent, bony figure. But the hero calmly told her not to be scared, explaining that the skeleton was the only thing keeping the other monsters at bay. Harold explained the skeleton had planted a monster-repelling flower in its own body to survive, but ultimately still succumbed to fate. Later, after things had calmed, the hero noticed Carrie's rumbling stomach and casually asked the blacksmith if she was hungry. He then offered her a roasted baby death hound on a stick, calmly assuring her that the infants were much softer than the adults. Carrie began to protest, but Harold simply stated that in this place, the law of the jungle ruled, and she needed to eat. Her hunger eventually won out over her disgust, and she hesitantly took her first bite of the roasted monster. To her utter surprise, the meat was delicious, and she devoured it as the hero explained he'd caught it on the run. The hero warned her that escaping would be difficult, as a massive hound was already stalking their current safe haven. He then delivered the grim news that the hound's favorite food is tough dwarf skin, making the half-dwarf Carrie their main target. Realizing her life was in danger, Carrie proposed they join forces, confident that together they could manage an escape. But Harold coldly rejected her offer, tying up his hair and stating that he intended to get out of the abyss all by himself. He then revealed he could make his own weapons from his enchanted hair, cruelly implying he no longer needed her help. He delivered his final reason, cruelly stating that she'd only slow him down since her body was too weak to handle magic. The hero explained he knew her secret. Her non-magic dwarven blood put immense strain on her body whenever she used elven magic. Carrie was shocked, finally understanding the reason for her lifelong exhaustion, a truth the hero saw in an instant. With his explanation finished, the hero coldly commanded her to stay behind as he prepared to leave her in the abyss. He told her she would be safe with the skeleton for a while, callously saying she should enjoy the rest of her life there as he left. Filled with renewed purpose, Carrie shouted that she refused to die in this abyss before becoming the world's greatest weaponsmith. She promised the hero her next weapon would be unbreakable, vowing to forge a blade that even his immense power could not shatter. Meanwhile, the hero struggled comically to cut his own tangled hair, unable to get the materials for his own weapon. Seeing her opportunity to be useful, the blacksmith confidently strode over to him and demanded he give her the scissors. After bluntly criticizing his haircutting skills, he simply told her he didn't care and held out the lock of hair for her to cut. He noted her expertise with the scissors, and Carrie explained she'd been grooming her father's dwarven beard since she was little. While she worked, she asked if heroes weren't supposed to protect people, but he coldly told her he was a hero a long time ago. He turned to her with a serious gaze, declaring that after his long imprisonment, he was now simply a free man. After she finished, she cheekily asked the former hero to help her become free too, as the skeleton formally introduced them. Now dressed, Harold reluctantly told Carrie she was free to follow him on his way out, but that she'd better be quick about it. Laden with all the luggage, Carrie complained about the unfair workload and looked pointedly at their skeletal companion. She then had an idea, realizing they didn't need the whole skeleton, just the monster-repelling flower in its eye. Reasoning they would be safe with just the flower, she reached out to pluck the magical bloom from the ancient skull. Seeing her disastrous plan, the hero desperately shouted for her to stop, but his warning came a moment too late. With a gentle flick, the flower was dislodged, and the skeleton, its final duty complete, instantly crumbled into dust. The hero angrily revealed her fatal mistake. The magical flower wilts the very moment it is touched by living hands. Carrie looked on in horror as their only protection vanished. Realizing this meant the monsters were no longer afraid. With the warding magic gone, the entire horde of beasts became hostile once more, lunging forward to attack them. They were immediately forced to flee for their lives as the ravenous pack of death hounds swarmed their safe haven. But amidst the chaos, Carrie spotted the plant's glowing bulb in the skeleton's remains and had a desperate new idea. Knowing a melee weapon meant certain death, Carrie began to forge a new tool from the heart of the glowing plant bulb. With a few quick strikes, she declared she would make a long-distance weapon, forging the materials into an ornate skeletal bow. The hero questioned her choice, stating that a bow was probably the worst possible weapon to use against such a large horde. He took the bow regardless, adding that while it might be a poor choice for others, it was a different story with him wielding it. With intense focus, he drew the string and took aim, declaring that with his skill, a weapon's supposed faults do not matter. To his companion's horror, the hero ignored the charging horde and fired his single arrow straight up into the sky. The arrow then exploded high above, creating a massive, magical illusion of the warding flower that stunned all the monsters below. With the beasts frozen in place, he unleashed his true technique, summoning a magical hail of arrows that rained down upon the horde. In an instant, the battle was over, and the two stood surrounded by fallen monsters as magical petals drifted down around them. Carrie then angrily confronted him about the flower, but he ignored her question, staring at his own hand as he called for her attention. Carrie begged him to try and limit his power so her weapons wouldn't break, but he bluntly admitted he's terrible at holding back. She then complained about carrying all the bags, but he coldly told her that dwarves are supposed to be strong and to leave if she couldn't keep up. As he walked away, she chased after him, exasperated that the legends were true and he really did break every weapon he used. She wondered if the stories about his compassion were lies, or if his 1,000-year imprisonment had fundamentally changed him. Then, with a pang of sadness, she realized that unlike before, this time he had offered no praise at all for her masterpiece. As they made their way out of the abyss, a flying monster suddenly swooped down, and Carrie yelled out the hero's name in warning. But the creature ignored them entirely, instead grabbing the heavy backpack right off Carrie's shoulders and flying away with its prize. Just as things settled, a massive white dragon appeared from the depths, causing the blacksmith to scream in disbelief. The majestic beast initially ignored them, flying past and disappearing into a massive cave carved into the abyss wall. A moment later, however, the great dragon emerged from the cave and began flying directly back towards them. As it passed overhead, the dragon's long tail whipped out and coiled around Carrie, snatching her from the ground. Now being dragged through the air, the unwilling adventurer could only scream in frustration at being kidnapped yet again. The blacksmith's small companion furiously scolded the hero, asking how he could have let her get kidnapped so easily. But as she was carried through the air, Carrie found herself captivated by the breathtaking and alien scenery of the abyss. She had never seen anything like the massive, hollow trees and strange, glowing orbs that filled the strange world below. The dragon flew her to the very top of the colossal trees, dropping her onto a branch as the hero landed nearby. In a final, playful act, the great beast then grabbed the hero's cloak and unceremoniously dropped him right beside her. Safely on the ground, the blacksmith realized with relief that the massive white dragon had no intention of eating them. She looked around at the vast landscape of shimmering crystals and understood that they had been brought to the dragon's nest. There they discovered two baby dragons, one black and one white, who both looked incredibly feeble and weak. The great mother dragon stood watch over her two children, and the reason for their kidnapping started to become clear. It was a cry for help. The mother dragon was wailing in sorrow over one of her children, who was lying sickly and still. The hero observed that the dragon was trying to communicate, and Carrie realized it had brought them there to save its children. Filled with compassion for the feeble babies, the young blacksmith declared that they needed to feed them immediately. But the hero had a much darker plan in mind, and he suddenly raised his boot over the one healthy baby dragon. He then brutally crushed the small creature's head under his heel, splattering blood across the blacksmith's horrified face. As he turned to walk away, she screamed at him in disbelief, and he looked back with a shocked and disturbed expression. The blacksmith grabbed the hero in a rage, screaming and asking how he could have been so incredibly cruel. He pushed her aside and told her to calm down and look closer, asking if she hadn't noticed what was really going on. She then watched in shock as the dead baby dragon dissolved into a grotesque puddle of black, swirling sludge. As the sludge began to reform into a new shape, the hero explained the truth of the situation. It was a mimic. The mimic then transformed into a perfect copy of the hero himself, leaving the real Harold momentarily surprised by its skill. The hero explained that mimics are supposed to copy inanimate objects, making this one's ability to copy a creature highly unusual. The mimic then revealed the horrifying truth. It was currently copying the corpse of the baby dragon, meaning the hero had killed the real one. It explained that a corpse was easy to copy, and it had been posing as the dead child to trick the grieving mother dragon. The mimic gloated that the mother was so blinded by her sorrow that she couldn't even distinguish the fake from her real child. This deception allowed the parasite to live a life of ease, having the mother dragon constantly bring it food while it did nothing. The mimic continued to gloat, revealing it had killed one of the twins and planned to take all the mother's care for itself. Looking down on the grieving mother dragon, the parasitic creature then coldly declared her actions to be pathetic. As the mimic delighted in the mother's ignorance, the blacksmith's rage boiled over, and she told the creature to stop talking. With tears of righteous fury in her eyes, she screamed at the mimic, telling it not to dare laugh at a mother who was trying her best. She then attacked the creature with her tool, screaming that the mother knew it was a deceitful bastard and to let her baby go. Perched on a mother dragon, the mimic mocked the hero, asking if he thought he could win with that piece of junk. Holding the last baby dragon hostage, the creature laughed maniacally, calling the desperate group a bunch of losers. But in a flash of movement, the hero's weapon sliced through the air, cutting the parasitic monster cleanly in half. As the creature split apart, its black, tar-like blood splattered across the hero's arm, much to his surprise. The two halves of the defeated mimic writhed on the ground, their bodies spasming as they failed to properly reform. The strange creature was clearly in agony, its attempts to transform failing as the hero calmly stood and watched. The hero then looked at his own weapon, which, unable to contain his immense power, shattered into pieces in his hand. The mimic continued its struggle, crying out in frustration that for some reason it was unable to transform. Its deception ended and its baby now safe. The mother dragon let out a triumphant roar and took to the skies. With righteous fury, the The mother dragon swooped down and snatched the helpless, struggling mimic in her massive jaws. The terrified mimic screamed for its life, desperately trying to continue its ruse by reminding the dragon it was her child. But its pleas were ignored, and the mother dragon crushed the creature in her teeth, causing it to explode into black sludge. The hero stated what was now obvious. As soon as the mimic was exposed, the mother dragon immediately attacked it. He then offered a final, shocking thought. Perhaps the mother knew the truth all along, but had been powerless to save her child. The hero explained the mother dragon was powerless because the mimic, despite its evil, still wore the face of her precious child. Holding the surviving baby, the blacksmith comforted it, then turned to the parent and promised everything would be okay. She stood bravely before the great dragon and announced that the evil mimic that had taken her child was finally gone for good. In a tender gesture, the massive mother dragon then gently nuzzled the side of the young blacksmith's face. As she giggled that it tickled, the hero pointed out that it was the dragon's way of thanking her for her help. From her perch, the blacksmith cheekily asked the hero if he was jealous of the affection, but he bluntly refused the offer. The great mother dragon tenderly nuzzled its now healthy child, a quiet moment of reunion after the terrible ordeal. Looking at the two, Carrie reflected on the incredible lengths a parent would go to for their children. But her smile faded as she noticed a single black tear roll down the cheek of the massive mother dragon. In that moment, she truly understood its pain as the great beast silently wept for the child it had lost forever. The touching reunion was cut short as the great mother dragon suddenly recoiled, crying out in immense pain. Without any warning, the strange growths on the side of her head violently exploded, leaving a massive, gruesome wound. At that exact moment, the surviving baby began to convulse in the blacksmith's arms, its eyes swirling in agony. The massive mother dragon then collapsed to the crystalline floor, its life force seemingly extinguished in an instant. It was then that the mimic revealed its final treachery. It had infected the mother, and now the hero ordered Carrie to stay back. A voice echoed from within the fallen dragon's mouth as the mimic laughed, stating the dragon had made a huge mistake. A new, monstrous form then began to crawl its way out of the great beast's corpse, spreading its leathery wings. The blacksmith stared in horror at the new creature, realizing with a shock that it was the mimic, now hideously transformed. The triumphant parasite, having consumed and stolen the mother dragon's form, declared that her wings now belonged to it. The hero and the blacksmith stood face to face with the mimic, which had now fully transformed into a great black dragon. Carrie stared at the keyhole pattern on its head, confirming with dread that this new beast was indeed the same crafty mimic. The mimic declared that its original plan was to bide its time, but with its new dragon wings, the plans had changed. The surviving baby dragon then began to cry out, its wails echoing through the cavern as it seemingly called for its mother. The blacksmith desperately tried to explain to the sad child that the monster before them was not its mother, but an evil fake. The mimic stood triumphant in its new body, boasting that with its dragon wings, it could finally escape the abyss of abandoned. The hero ignored the blacksmith's fears, turning to her and addressing her simply by her title, Weaponsmith. He then gave her a clear and simple order, to forge him a weapon that was powerful enough to kill the mimic. The mimic scoffed at his command, while Carrie refused, unable to bear killing the creature in front of the baby who still thought it was its mother. With a final taunt, the mimic declared that it was a true dragon now, and they were powerless to even lay a finger on it. The mimic unleashed its power, shattering the massive crystalline tree they were standing on and sending them falling. As the nest crumbled away, the monster cackled from above, telling the hero and the blacksmith to rot in hell. Plummeting into the dark abyss, the hero grabbed the blacksmith's attention and told her to listen to him closely. He then explained his simple philosophy as they fell. In this world, weapons are nothing more than a tool for survival. He gave her a final, grim choice. Make him a weapon to kill the mimic, or all of them would die together. As they plummeted through the abyss, The hero asked the blacksmith a simple but profound question. Why do you make weapons? He pressed her for an answer, asking if her drive to create was the same as her instinct to save the baby dragon. In that moment, she had an epiphany. She was a weaponsmith, and she created tools not just to take life, but also to save it. With a newfound clarity and resolve, she gripped her smithing hammer, finally understanding what she needed to do. As the hero ran down the falling debris, she declared her new purpose: to forge a weapon that could save the baby dragon's life. With her purpose clear, the blacksmith forged the falling debris into a bizarre and intricate mechanical contraption. The new device fired a powerful energy blast, creating a stable platform and stopping their descent into the abyss. Now riding a chainsaw-bladed motorcycle, the hero faced the mimic and declared this new tool would be its doom. The mimic laughed and breathed a torrent of fire, daring the hero to challenge its new draconic form. But the hero simply used the weapon's spinning blade to block the flames, leaping through the fire to attack the shocked monster. The mimic boasted that it couldn't be killed, but the hero revealed his true aim was never the decoy dragon body. With a single precise strike, he bypassed the illusion and hit his real target, the creature's hidden main body. Now exposed and helpless, the mimic's core begged for mercy and desperately tried to bargain for its life. But the hero refused to ally with a treacherous shapeshifter and brought his boot down to crush the creature's true form. With its core destroyed, the mimic's stolen dragon body finally dissolved into nothing, ending its parasitic reign for good. With the battle finally over, the lone baby dragon looked up at the colossal trees and began to chirp softly. The hero then used the incredible dragon razor to begin carving a path for them up the side of the massive crystal trees. They ventured into a forest of the giant, crystalline trees, and the blacksmith climbed high into the branches to forage for food. Tired of the hero's questionable cooking, she was determined to find ingredients for a proper dwarven soup. After a short search, she happily plucked a large, round fruit from a branch, calling it a stone tomato. But her hopes were dashed when she found the fruit was hard as a rock, and none of the others nearby were ripe. She then made a grim discovery. All the branches that held ripe fruit had been cleanly sliced off with a blade. The blacksmith urgently told the hero that the harvested fruit meant that someone else was living in the abyss with them. Suddenly, the baby dragon, whom she had named Peter, flew up and retrieved a perfectly ripe stone tomato just for her. She was overjoyed to finally have an ingredient, but the hero dryly questioned her choice to bring the baby dragon along. The blacksmith simply stated that the baby was already following them, and the hero sighed, calling her far too gullible. He then ended the conversation with a grim warning. Dragons are smarter than people, and the baby could kill her in an instant. The hero noted the baby dragon's glare, and the blacksmith bluntly reminded him it was because he had killed its mother. She then admitted that by that logic, it was her weapon that dealt the final blow, even if it was only to a mimic. This gave her a new resolve, and she vowed to stay by the orphan dragon's side for as long as it needed her. She then appealed to the hero's past self, asking him if he couldn't understand the powerful feeling of needing to protect someone. As she passionately described the burning in her heart, the baby dragon accidentally set her head on fire, much to the hero's amusement. Deciding they couldn't travel on an empty stomach, the blacksmith set up camp to prepare the ingredients they had gathered. The baby dragon, Peter, tried to help, struggling with all his might to breathe a steady flame for their campfire. After a great deal of effort, the little dragon finally produced a tiny fire, earning him plenty of praise from the blacksmith. With the fire lit, she was finally able to cook, proudly presenting her finished and steaming stone tomato soup. The soup was a resounding success, and both the blacksmith and the happy baby dragon eagerly ate the delicious meal. After she served him the soup, the hero simply sat and blew on it, ignoring the blacksmith's pleas for him to eat. She watched him cautiously cool his food, puzzled by his behavior and asking if it was really that hot. His overly careful demeanor then caused her to laugh, much to the stoic hero's quiet annoyance. Wiping a tear from her eye, she explained her relief, saying his simple, human action proved he wasn't just a weirdo. But their peaceful meal was cut short as the hero's eyes snapped open, suddenly sensing a mysterious figure in the darkness. Just as the heroes sensed, a group of mysterious strangers emerged from the woods, surrounding their small campsite. Their leader stepped forward, stating with a smirk that they were simply guests interested in the blacksmith's cuisine. The hero then revealed his trick. He had seen their reflections in the surface of his hot soup, hence his cautious behavior. As the strangers launched a surprise attack, the hero reacted with incredible speed, easily deflecting their first volley. He instantly knocked over their soup bowls, using the hot liquid to intercept the poison thrown by their assailants. Then, with brutal efficiency, he hurled the heavy stone bowl and knocked one of the attackers out cold. The strangers were revealed to be bandits, and their leader's eyes lit up at the sight of a rare elf and a baby dragon. One of the bandits noted that she was not a typical elf, and their leader confirmed his suspicion with a greedy look. He revealed that she was a rare dark elf, a prize so valuable that his men would likely kill each other to possess her. With his target's value established, the bandit leader gave the simple order for his men to charge in and attack. But as they rushed forward, he cast a spell and gave one final, crucial command. The valuable elf was not to be harmed. The bandits moved with incredible speed, and the hero confirmed the blacksmith's suspicion that they were using enhancement magic. She quickly explained to the ancient hero that, in the modern world, magical tools allowed anyone to wield magic. Put on the defensive, the hero was forced to use a piece of scrap metal as a shield to block the bandits' swift attacks. He parried and blocked their blows, but it was clear he was facing a difficult challenge against the magically enhanced warriors. One of the bandits mocked his efforts, questioning how long his normal stamina could hold out against their superior speed. The hero was quickly overwhelmed by the bandits, and one of them grabbed the blacksmith, taking her hostage. As her captor held her at knife point, another bandit cruelly snatched the baby dragon and dangled it by its tail. She screamed at them for hurting the baby, but the bandit just laughed maniacally and threatened her to stay quiet. Then, in a shocking betrayal, the hero surrendered, telling the bandits to take the elf and the dragon as he had no use for them. The blacksmith was left in stunned silence as her captor laughed, celebrating that the hero had actually sold out his own comrades. The bandits mocked the hero for his apparent betrayal, smugly stating that even they would never abandon their comrades. He continued his act of surrender, claiming he was helpless without a weapon, all while resting his boot on a hard stone tomato. Then, in a sudden move, he kicked the rock-hard fruit high into the air, using it as a perfect airborne anvil. Understanding his plan, the blacksmith broke free and used her magic hammer to instantly forge the fruit into a new weapon. The hero caught the newly created staff in midair and immediately launched himself forward to attack the stunned bandits. The bandit leader watched the battle with keen interest, fascinated by the blacksmith's strange ability to create weapons from magic. He then drew his own magnificent sword, preparing to engage the legendary hero in a one-on-one duel. But first, he paused to furiously scold his subordinate, reminding him of his strict orders not to harm the valuable dark elf. He then turned to the hero and shared his own grim philosophy for survival. One must first cast off all unnecessary weight. And with a powerful thrust of his sword, he finished his lesson. Then, you must take whatever you want by any means necessary. With no fear, the hero caught the bandit leader's blade in his bare hand, stopping the powerful attack instantly. He then looked at the shocked bandit with contempt and told him his sword technique was pathetic and that he would show him how it's done. Effortlessly disarming the leader, he then turned on the others, using the hard stone tomatoes as deadly projectiles. The bandit leader was left defeated and impaled on a branch, wondering what impossible power the hero possessed. Now wielding the staff the blacksmith had forged, the hero stood victorious, ready to deal with the remaining bandits. The weapon then shattered in his hand, and, as the blacksmith said his name, the defeated bandits looked up in shock. Kneeling before him, they finally realized their terrible mistake. They had just attacked Harold, the legendary hero of the end. With the battle over and the bandits subdued, the hero calmly adjusted a small device he wore in his ear. The bandits remained on their knees, still in complete shock that they had just fought the actual hero of the end. But when one of them called the blacksmith a brat, she angrily got in his face, declaring she was far older than any of them. With tears of pure defiance, she continued to scream that she wasn't afraid of them in the slightest, stunning the bandits. Their leader then changed his approach, respectfully asking Hero Harold to form an alliance and join them at the black market. The hero flatly rejected the bandits' offer and began to walk away, but the leader said the market's owner had something for him. He then played his trump card, calmly offering the hero information regarding the location of someone named Nikona. The name hit the hero like a lightning bolt, and he spun around, demanding to know how the bandit knew that name. The leader explained that criminals come across all sorts of information and repeated his offer for an alliance to enter the market. The blacksmith pleaded with the hero not to listen, but he stood silent, clearly tempted and conflicted by the bandit's offer. The hero stared at his ruined meal and explained his simple motivation for what he was about to do. He was starving. He then turned to the bandits and coldly inquired how much the dark elf and her dragon companion might sell for at the market. And with that, a tense and uneasy alliance was formed as the two groups began their journey toward the black market. The blacksmith angrily protested his decision to work with such scum, but the bandit leader explained his plan to meet their boss. He revealed that the reclusive boss only appears in person to evaluate the most valuable goods, like a dark elf and a dragon. They finally arrived at the strange entrance to the market, and the blacksmith realized her role in the plan was to be the bait. The bandit leader opened a hidden portal, gravely warning them that inside the black market, there are no allies. Stepping through, they found themselves in the Bale Market, a massive city built among the canopies of giant, ancient trees. As they made their way through the crowded streets, the blacksmith was completely overwhelmed by the sights of the bustling city. The hero then gave her one final, serious warning for her own safety. In a place like this, she could trust no one. As she was led through the streets on a leash, the blacksmith was left speechless by the grotesque nature of the black market. She then realized the horrifying truth of the city. The entire marketplace was secretly owned and operated by monsters. Upon arriving at the auction house, a long-limbed creature licked her face, a crude test to see if she was a genuine dark elf. The monster attendants then spoke amongst themselves, mentioning that the market's mana circuitry was temporarily down. Her authenticity confirmed, the bandit leader smugly told the monsters that they would be the judge and to send her in. The monster attendant impatiently ordered the blacksmith to get inside a large, suspended cage to be presented. As she was locked inside, the hero approached the cage and gave her some quiet, last-minute instructions for their plan. He leaned in close to the bars and promised her that he would be there the very instant she gave him a signal. As her cage was lifted into the air, he asked if she could pull it off, and she grimly replied that she had no other choice. The blacksmith was then sent flying across the city, the bait being delivered directly to the reclusive boss of the black market. Her cage was finally brought to a dark, ominous chamber, placed next to another cage holding her small, muzzled companion. She was then sent down a long tunnel, where shadowy monsters whispered in delight at the sight of a rare dark elf. At her destination, the cage opened, and she was immediately swarmed by grotesque hands, inspecting her like a piece of livestock. The monsters declared that their master, Bale, would be delighted, as one greedily moved in to take a little taste of her. But before it could touch her, her tiny companion exploded in a ball of fire, incinerating the monsters with its hidden power. She realized her small companion had burned itself out to protect her, just as the true master of the market finally appeared. The grotesque, multi-limbed monster grabbed her, inspecting his new quality goods, with a hungry look in his many eyes. But a mysterious, cloaked stranger suddenly intervened, stopping the monster's advance and pulling the blacksmith to safety. The stranger then stood protectively before her, shielding her from the grotesque and terrifying master of the black market. After saving her, the figure pointed the way to the boss's lair, cryptically saying it was unfortunate they had to meet there. Her mysterious savior pointed towards the passage to the boss's lair, ominously telling her it was unfortunate they had met there. The figure then revealed herself to be a gravely wounded woman, who explained her warning with a grim finality. Nobody has ever left this place alive. They now stood in a dark, forgotten corner of the market, with the wounded woman's grim warning hanging in the air. The blacksmith rushed to her side, horrified to see the true extent of her injuries, with multiple swords piercing her body. But the woman remained strangely calm, introducing herself as Nora and then politely asking for the blacksmith's name. Stunned into silence, the blacksmith could only stammer as Nora's gaze was suddenly drawn to the magnificent sword she held. Feeling helpless, Carrie gently placed a hand on the dying woman's face, apologizing that it was the only comfort she could offer. The dying woman then blew a gentle kiss, and a sparkling magic instantly healed the blacksmith and the baby dragon's burns. Carrie was amazed that she could use such rare healing magic, a feat that required an incredible amount of mana. Nora then explained her secret. Her body was a fountain of endless mana, which was the only reason she was still alive. She then urged the blacksmith to leave her behind and continue on her own journey, telling her not to worry. With a final, peaceful smile, the dying woman said that she was simply happy she had been able to help them. From the shadows, the grotesque master of the market, Bale, watched the two women with his many hungry eyes. The monster and his minions then emerged from the darkness and cornered them, surprised to find the two together. Realizing they were trapped, the wounded woman selflessly screamed for the blacksmith to run and save herself. But Carrie refused to leave her new friend behind, even as the woman insisted that her wounds would only slow them down. Instead, the blacksmith stood defiantly before the great monster, introduced herself, and declared her hatred for magic. With grim determination, the young blacksmith gripped the hilt of her sword, ready to take action. She praised the dying woman's powerful magic and began using her smithing skills to try and save her life. Ignoring the woman's pain as the sword shifted, she made a heartfelt promise that they would escape together. Meanwhile, a frantic announcement suddenly echoed through the city, declaring that the ether had been found. The news sent the monster attendants scrambling in a panic, desperate to fix the situation before their master, Bale, found out. Amidst the commotion, the hero asked the bandit leader what this ether was that had everyone in a panic. The leader explained it was the mana source that powered the entire black market, and its loss was a catastrophic failure. After being supplied with new weapons, the hero learned the bandit could teleport him to the blacksmith's location. The two then stood on a high perch, with the bandit hoping aloud that the blacksmith wouldn't mess up their desperate plan. Meanwhile, the blacksmith was already in motion, running for her life through a dark and terrifying underground tunnel. Carrying the wounded woman on her back, the blacksmith ran for her life as grotesque, long-limbed monsters chased them. The creatures swarmed them from all sides as their master, Bale, taunted them from the shadows of the dark tunnel. As more and more of the spider-like monsters appeared, the two realized just how outnumbered they truly were. The wounded woman begged the blacksmith to leave her behind, but she refused to give up and pressed onward. Their main pursuer, the market's grotesque master, mockingly complimented the blacksmith's toughness as he gave chase. The wounded woman stood defiantly before the grotesque master of the black market, the monstrous creature known as Bale. Holding up the glowing ether, she angrily demanded if the monster knew how much had been lost since she and the power source had vanished. The scene then flashed to a horrific vision of the past, showing the hero being brutally tortured by the monster's crushing hands. The monster ignored her, speaking directly to the ether and demanding to know where the sentient power source had been hiding. It then performed a bizarre ritual, grotesquely grating the ether on abstract qualities like its sound and flexibility. Finally, Bale crushed the ether in its hand, deeming it worthless, before angrily scolding the blacksmith for interrupting the evaluation. The wounded woman stood alone, facing the full, terrifying might of the black market's monstrous master Bale. The monster's many eyes were fixated on her, or rather, on the immense power she held within her hands. A vision then revealed the shocking truth. The woman was not a woman at all, but the living, breathing mana source known as the Ether. The great monster spoke to her like a disobedient pet, stating that after running away, she had finally come back to him. He then crushed her weapon with his bare hand, declaring her evaluation was not over and that her only true place was here. The blacksmith watched in absolute horror as the great monster casually crushed a person in its hand and devoured them. But the creature immediately spat out the wretched, black remains, disgusted by the foul taste of its unfortunate meal. The monster then mocked the soul it had just consumed, stating that such worthless things were a common meal for it. It then turned to its collection of bottled souls, musing that a short nap might make one of them more useful. The grotesque master held up a jar of tormented spirits, laughing cruelly as the blacksmith watched in horror. The blacksmith understood she was now facing a true demon, a soulless creature of immense and terrifying magical power. The great monster then turned its full attention to her, its many eyes glowing as it declared that the dark elf was next. Frozen by fear, the blacksmith could only wonder if she would end up like the monster's last victim. But her companion had a plan. Despite her grave injuries, the woman declared she would use her power and unleashed a brilliant wave of healing magic. Her magic had a shocking effect, causing the grotesque remains on the floor to writhe in agony, as if being painfully resurrected. The healing spell had a horrific result, creating a grotesque abomination of flesh that writhed on the ground, begging for death. The great monster mocked her failed spell, laughing at her incompetence and asking if she really thought that would work. It then reminded her of her cruel past, stating she was cast down into this abyss precisely because no one ever wanted her. The monster continued its torment, telling her she was nothing more than a tool, and it was her mana they wanted, not her. But as the monster commanded her to submit, she remembered the blacksmith's kind words and finally found her resolve to fight back. Finding her resolve, the woman joined the blacksmith, and the two fought fiercely back-to-back against the horde of monsters. But they were soon overpowered, and the Monster King ordered his minions to drag the woman away for mana extraction. As she was captured, the woman began to accept her fate as a mere tool, willing to be used even by a demon. But the blacksmith desperately told her they were the same, explaining that she too had always felt unwanted and like a nuisance. She then declared that as long as even one person praised her work, she would keep on living, giving her new friend hope. Inspired, the woman told the blacksmith that her greatest strength was her willingness to help others, prompting her to call for aid. Filled with righteous fury, the young blacksmith declared that she would save her new friend from the demon's evil clutches. From afar, the bandit leader saw her magical signal and activated his teleportation device, finally sending in their hero. In a brilliant flash of light, the hero appeared on the battlefield, armed with a new blade and ready to turn the tide. With the hero now by their side, the three companions fought as one, easily overwhelming the grotesque monster's minions. The hero and the bandit leader fought back-to-back, an unlikely alliance formed to battle the monstrous master of the market. With incredible speed, the hero cut down the last of the minions, protecting the blacksmith and her friend from the fray. After the minions were dealt with, the two warriors stood together, a moment of calm before the final confrontation. The Monster King then recognized the bandit leader, sneering at his former underling for daring to betray him. But the hero ignored their past, calmly facing the great beast and stating he had something he needed to ask. With the minions defeated, the hero supported the wounded woman and finally came face-to-face with a monstrous market boss. Worried for his safety against such a foe, the woman grabbed his cloak and desperately called out the hero's name. The blacksmith then rushed to her friend's side, and after a tearful reunion, quickly introduced her to the hero, Harold. The hero then made his own claim on the woman, declaring that she belonged to him and demanding the monster return her. But the blacksmith angrily interrupted, screaming at the monster that her friend was not an object and belonged to no one. The hero confronted the monster, demanding to know the true reason it was hoarding such an immense amount of mana. But the great beast simply dismissed his question, calling the hero a pest and asking why its plan should concern him. The hero then made a quick deal with the bandit leader, agreeing to fight together to take down their common foe. The bandit boldly declared his plan to take over the market, but the monster simply laughed at the insignificant insect. The great beast then issued a final challenge to the hero himself. Defeat me, and I will answer all of your questions. With the battle joined, the hero and the bandit leader charged forward together, launching their assault on the great beast. The unlikely allies attacked as one, launching a perfectly coordinated strike against their multi-limbed foe. As the main fight began, the other bandits worked to fend off the lesser monsters, protecting the blacksmith and her friend. The monster mocked the bandit for using a weapon from its own market, but he simply replied that it felt great. He then declared it was the ideal weapon to defeat the beast, before unleashing a furious and powerful combination attack. The bandit's powerful attack sent a massive shockwave of destruction through the monster's throne room. But the great beast simply laughed at his efforts, declaring that his strongest attack felt like nothing more than an ant bite. Undeterred, the bandit pressed his assault, continuing to rain down a furious barrage of strikes upon the monster's head. The shockwaves from their battle shattered the nearby soul jars, and the blacksmith quickly rushed to protect her friend. But from the broken jars, a new, even more powerful form of the monster began to emerge from the swirling souls. The great monster mocked the bandit's resolve, telling him that with such a weak will, he could never hope to win. The bandit then admitted with grim acceptance that he was already well aware that he could not defeat the beast alone. But the hero then used his power to send a new, shining sword flying directly into the bandit leader's hands. With his new weapon, the bandit revealed their true strategy, telling the monster that he was not its real opponent. He then declared that the one who would truly defeat the beast was the legendary hero Harold, who was already poised to strike. But the monster revealed it had anticipated their betrayal, stating that its meticulous nature had foreseen their every move. It then unleashed its ultimate trap, revealing that every weapon from its market was infused with its own corrupting mana. The great beast explained that with a single command, it could turn any of its own weapons against their wielder. It then proved its point by causing the bandits' sword to violently explode, declaring that their attacks would never reach it. The monster emerged from the fiery explosion unharmed, and the hero's companions could only scream his name in terror. Looking at the rows of soul jars, the wounded woman suddenly cried out, recognizing one of the tormented figures trapped inside. As if on cue, the very jar she was staring at suddenly shattered, violently releasing its captive into the chamber. From the wreckage of the broken containers, two grotesque and lanky monsters shambled forward, their bodies twisted and malformed. The blacksmith stared in horror at the creatures, realizing with dawning dread what happened to the people who were trapped inside the jars.